Our meditation this morning is by Reverend Elizabeth Tarbox. Dukkha, they say. The Buddhists say all is dukkha. It is hard to translate, they tell us. It means literally suffering, but the feeling of dukkha is closer to impermanence. The fact of impermanence is central to the Buddhist path to nirvana, enlightenment. Dukkha, all is impermanence. Nothing lasts. I thought of that yesterday, watching leaves come down in a shower, the smell of the rotting ones going back into the earth, leaf to humus and back to earth to nourish the roots of the mother tree. The crows crying as the leaves fall and their nests are exposed. Dukkha. All is impermanence. And life goes on, and people who were with us last year at this time have died. All souls pass on. All is dukkha. Nothing lasts. The path to enlightenment is understanding, accepting impermanence to the point where we no longer struggle against it. That is the way of the Buddha. But here in the West, we search for that which is permanent, even as we live with the death of all things, all people. We search for a sure footing on the path strewn with fallen leaves. We notice the buds of next year's growth, tight-curled and waiting. We hold on to the things we can count on, our church, our community, our memories of those who died before us, our love and hope, and the search for certainty in a world that is dukkha. God of creation, God of today, let us find each other in a changing world. Let us experience love as something which exists, a possibility which is. Let us know that we are alive and being renewed miraculously each second, that the impermanence gives to life its freshness and surprise, that our memories of yesterday and our expectations of tomorrow make now a cherished, precious, eternal moment. Amen. Can't remember where God was when they went to sleep. It's all right. The world cleanses itself in this way. A wrong number occurs to you in the middle of the night. You dial it, it rings just in time to save the house. And the second-story man gets the wrong address where the insomniac lives, and he's lonely, and they talk, and the thief goes back to college. Even in graduate school, you can wander into the wrong classroom and hear great poems lovingly spoken by the wrong professor. And you find your soul. And greatness has a defender. And even in death, you're safe. I heard a funny story the other day from one of my retired colleagues. It has to do with the subject of aging and memory. My colleague went to the doctor for a routine checkup the other day, and because she's reached a certain age, a memory test has become routine in her appointments with her primary care physician. The doctor gave her at the beginning of the visit a list of words to remember. Key, clock, dog, apple, that kind of thing. There were 5 words, and my colleague was so focused on remembering them that she hardly paid attention to the rest of the office visit. She just kept repeating to herself, key, clock, dog. She didn't want to forget. Well, the end of the visit came. The doctor said, okay, now I'd like you to tell me as many of the words as you can remember from the beginning of our visit. Key, she said. Apple, clock, dog. But there was one last word that just wouldn't come to her. She racked her brain for it. What was it? Surely it would come to her, but it just didn't. Finally, the doctor said, do you want to know what the 5th word was? And the doctor was laughing a little, which surprised my colleague, until the doctor said, church. The last word was church. This retired minister had completely blocked the word church from her memory. I've been thinking a lot lately about memory. What a powerful and baffling thing it is. The other night, I watched the film Lion. Have any of you seen it? What an amazing film. It's a true story about a little boy in India. His name is Saru, and he is 5 years old. He and his brother Gudu steal coal from freight trains to trade for milk and food. Their mother is a laborer, and they have very little other than each other. One day, Saru insists on accompanying his older brother on a nighttime mission to make some money. But he gets tired and falls asleep on a bench in a train station. When he wakes up, he can't find his brother, so he looks for him on a train that's parked on the tracks nearby. Before he knows what is happening, the train begins to move, and he is trapped inside. He has no idea where it is going. The empty train does not stop for several days until it arrives in faraway Calcutta, a huge and bustling city where Saru does not even know the language. He tries to get a ticket back home, but no one can understand the name of his small village. He is utterly lost. The film covers Saru's incredible ordeal in Calcutta and then time spent in an orphanage until finally he is adopted by an Australian couple living in Tasmania. Saru blocks out most of his memories of that trying time as a 5-year-old boy, but 20 years later, the memories start flooding back. He remembers a water tower and a train trestle. He remembers rock formations where his mother labored. Not much to go on, especially in a country the size of India. But using calculations about train speed and time, he begins to search for his village using Google Earth. He becomes obsessed, spending every evening poring over the Indian landscape on the computer, covering thousands and thousands of miles, meticulously tracking his progress on a map. Miraculously, using just a 5-year-old's memory of a water tower and a train trestle, he finds his village. Saru, now a grown man, returns to his hometown, where he has an emotional reunion with his biological mother, who has never given up hope that her son would one day return. She had never moved away from the village in case he might one day find his way back to her. I'm completely in awe of Saru. I'm completely blown away by his ability to remember something so strongly from when he was 5 years old, and to use those glimpses of memory to rebuild a life. The brain is an incredible thing, and memories are a tangle of emotion. What do we remember? What do we suppress? What would life be like if we remembered everything like it were yesterday? There are some people who do remember every detail of every day. It's called hyperthymesia. I'm kind of glad I don't have it. It sounds tiring. Some things you just don't want to remember. Sometimes lack of memory feels like a kindness because it allows us to move on, to let go, to heal. There are some therapy techniques now, such as EMDR, that focus on processing old memories so that we can move on from them and so that they do not play on repeat in our brains so vividly. EMDR stands for eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. I'm so curious about memory. I'm curious about feelings of nostalgia, viewing the past through rose-colored glasses. It's a warm, cozy feeling for the past. But sometimes it means that the present really never has a chance to measure up. I'm curious about things I wish I could remember more clearly, but don't. I remember very little from when I was 5. I wish I could remember more about my grandfather. He died when I was 8. I'm curious about how events that I've seen pictures of later are much easier to hold on to. Sometimes I'm not even sure if I really remember something or if I just remember the picture of it. And so I think I remember the actual day. I'm curious how stress heightens memory. Sometimes this means that we hold on to bad memories more easily than good ones. One of my earliest memories is of being out in a backyard or a field somewhere when I was a toddler, and all the grown-ups were sitting down on the ground in a circle. My parents were total hippies. And I remember running and jumping onto my father's back and giving him a big hug. But then when I saw his face, I realized it wasn't my dad at all, just someone who looked like him from behind. And that was so startling to me that I still remember it to this day. Why do I remember this and not other happier memories? I'm curious about the seemingly wasted space of things I remember for no good reason. I remember, maybe you do too, that if you want a carpet installed next day, you should call 588-2300 Empire today. I looked it up, and that is the number. Oh, get out of there. Memory is a fascinating thing. You know, what's gotten me thinking about memory these past few weeks is something that happened here on Easter morning. Maybe you'll remember that we had a little Easter egg hunt here in the sanctuary, and we each found one egg, and I instructed you not to open it on that day. I told you to bring your egg home and save it for a rainy day when you are needing to reconnect with a message of hope. And then I made a joke about memory. Do you remember? I said, hopefully you'll remember where you put your egg, which is a real risk. And then I got booed. Do you remember that? I remember that. It's not often that a minister gets booed in the pulpit. It was this year, yeah. But two thoughts emerged on that day. One is I should apologize. I'm sorry that I made a joke about memory. That is a sensitive topic for a lot of people. And two, wow, we should talk about this. Obviously, emotions run deep on this subject, so let's not avoid it. Let's dive right in. Quick poll of the congregation. How many of you have had this experience? You walk into a room with the intention of doing something, but once you're in the room, you completely forget what it was you were on your way to do, and all you can think of is, what did I come in here for? Okay. So this is a pretty universal experience. Everyone raised their hand. It's universal, and yet I've heard from many of you that although you can laugh at it and lightheartedly bond over difficulty with word retrieval, bring me the whatchamacallit. I've heard from you that as you get older, this very common experience of difficulty with memory actually isn't that easy to laugh at because it's underlined by a deeper fear. And the fear is that those moments of forgetting, of not remembering, might be a sign not just of aging, but of Alzheimer's or dementia. And that is a very scary thought to have running through your mind every time you can't find your keys or you forget to go to an event that you had been looking forward to. Experts say that it is completely normal to forget some things and to become a bit more forgetful as you age. It's also normal to worry about forgetting. Here are some typical memory problems that are a normal part of everyday life. Transience. This is the tendency to forget facts or events over time. Although transience might seem like a sign of memory weakness, brain scientists regard it as beneficial because it clears the brain of unused memories, making way for newer, more useful ones. Absent-mindedness. This type of forgetting occurs when you don't pay close enough attention to what you are doing or hearing. For example, misplacing your glasses or your car keys because you were thinking of something else. Your brain didn't encode the information securely. Absent-mindedness also involves forgetting to do something at a prescribed time, like keeping an appointment. Blocking. This is the temporary inability to retrieve a memory. That it's on the tip of my tongue feeling. Blocking occurs when a memory is properly stored in your brain, but something keeps you from finding it. In many cases, the blocked memory is similar to another one, and you retrieve the wrong one. This competing memory, though, is so intrusive that you can't think of the memory you want. So you call your younger son by your older son's name. Misattribution. This memory problem occurs when you recall something accurately in part, but incorrectly recall some detail like the place or the person involved. As with several other kinds of memory lapses, misattribution becomes more common with age for two reasons. First, as you age, you absorb fewer details when acquiring information because you have a little bit more trouble concentrating and processing information rapidly. Second, when you get older, your memories grow older as well, and old memories are especially prone to misattribution. Suggestibility. This is the vulnerability of memory to the power of suggestion, information that you learn about an occurrence after the fact. Suggestibility can be the culprit in recollections of incidents from your childhood that never really happened. Bias. One enduring myth about memory is that it records what you perceive and experience with complete objective accuracy. In reality, your perceptions are filtered and influenced by personal biases. Your experiences, beliefs, prior knowledge, and even your mood at the moment, both when the memory is being encoded in the brain and when it is being retrieved. People prone to depression, for example, remember negative information better than positive information. So even when we are perfectly healthy, we face these different memory challenges. But when we add on other factors like lack of sleep or stress or depression, these issues with memory can intensify. Although I can't know what it's like to have memory problems due to aging, I want to tell you about an experience I had at a very stressful time in my life. This was about 8 years ago. My sister was very ill. Many of you know that she suffered from throat cancer, and she's doing very well now. But at that time, it wasn't at all clear that she was going to get through this. All of her surgeries and procedures and recoveries kind of blend together for me at this point. But I know that in this particular memory, she was in the hospital and I was taking care of her kids. They were little back then, not the preteens that they are today. Linda, you would not recognize them. But at that point, my niece Callie was just a toddler. We took them to visit my sister in the hospital, but we didn't want them to spend too much time in there. So while the rest of the family stayed with my sister, I brought the kids across the street to a playground. You know, the one on the Esplanade, right on the Charles River, that one. While we were there, the kids were playing, and other kids were there too, and they started playing together as kids do. I wish it were that easy to make friends as an adult. One of the moms was watching my niece playing with her own daughter, and she said to me, "She's so cute. What's her name?" I drew a complete blank on my niece's name. I didn't know at that time that stress could affect memory. I thought I had had a stroke. It was like time stood still. What was her name? It was on the tip of my tongue. If I could just have a minute to think. But it was becoming awkward with the woman at the park. "I'm Kate," I said, trying to buy a little time. "And she is." I considered making up a name. She wouldn't know the difference. "She's 2, I said. I remembered that. And then it came to me in a great relieving rush of memory. "She's Callie, Calathea, she's Callie." I don't remember what this woman's daughter's name was. I don't remember what I did after that. I don't remember where my nephew was while this was taking place. I just remember how scared I was, how untrustworthy my brain felt, how inconceivable it was that I could forget the most basic thing about the most precious thing in the world to me, my own niece. It was scary because I thought it was pointing to a deeper problem. So I don't know what it is like to have memory problems from aging, but I guess I have had a taste of that fear that you are telling me about. That fear that makes jokes about memory not funny sometimes. So just as it was reassuring to me to hear that stress can cause memory loss, I want to reassure you that some memory loss and memory challenges are a natural part of aging, a frustrating one, but a natural and normal one. And if your memory challenges are worsening, and if other people are noticing and pointing it out to you, you should absolutely talk with your doctor about this. especially if you find yourself asking the same question over and over or repeating the same story, or if you become lost in familiar places or are having a hard time following directions. You should talk to your doctor. Don't hide from this, because if you do have a diagnosable problem, starting treatment early can help preserve memory and slow its loss. But also, your doctor might be able to figure out alternative reasons that you are suffering from memory loss. It could be medication side effects, vitamin B12 deficiency, alcohol use, infection, or thyroid disorder. They might be able to help. So please have some honest conversations with your family, friends, and medical providers about your memory. At the very least, you won't have to worry alone. You know, a few years ago when I was traveling, ironically, I forget where, I was in the security section of the airport. It was just after the long lines and the metal detectors and the x-ray machines for carry-on luggage. You always feel so disheveled after you go through that part of the airport, don't you? I mean, you have to take your shoes off and your sweater off, and then they make you take things out of your purse and put them in bins, and you have to raise your hands above your head in that weird doorway machine. And you come out the other side, and you need to rush off to find your gate, but first you need to put yourself back together. But there's people coming behind you, and it's stressful. Well, in this one airport where I was traveling, I saw the best sign. I loved it so much I took a picture of it on my phone. There was an area with benches, and above it was the sign which read, "Recombobulation Area." Recombobulation area. I loved it. That's just what I needed. I loved the sign. I loved that I had a little space where I could pull myself back together. And I loved the whole idea of recombobulation. I'd only heard discombobulate. So that's what I really needed to do after that incident in the park where I forgot my niece's name. That's really what all of us need when we've had an episode of forgetting, of not remembering, of misremembering. We need areas of gentleness, where we can be gentle with ourselves, gentle with each other, and slowly put things back in place. One last story about memory. When we were members of the UU Church in Essex, Lisa and I befriended Joan and Maria, a wonderful couple in the congregation who became good friends. Although she is younger than Joan, Maria struggles with a memory disorder. Over the years of our friendship, we've seen her memory deteriorate, and we keep her in our prayers as she enters various studies and medical trials. A few years ago, Joan and Maria were visiting friends in Florida in a gated lesbian community. Maria took their little dog out for a walk one morning, but soon she got lost. And she could not find her way back to their friend's house. She wandered and wandered. Seeing her walking in circles, a woman driving by slowed down and stopped to ask Maria, "You look lost. Can I help you?" Maria told her how she could not find the place that she was staying. The woman asked her if she knew the address. She couldn't remember. She asked her other questions about the house. Maria couldn't remember. "Maybe I know your friends," the woman said. "What are their names?" Maria told her, but the woman didn't know them. "I don't know them," she said, "but I'm sure I know someone who does." she invited Maria to sit in her air-conditioned car while she called around to neighbors and friends until finally she found someone who knew Maria's friends and could give her their address. And then she brought Maria home. I think Joan and Maria decided on that very day to move there. It was a scary day for them both. And they will continue to have scares and challenges due to Maria's memory. But they are held by a community of care that looks out for them and goes out of their way to take care of each other, even when they are strangers. I don't know what each of you are facing. Some things I know and some I don't. Some fears you share with me and some you don't. But my hope is that whatever you are facing, that this community can be that place for you. That place where you feel safe and held and looked out for by friends and by strangers. Or maybe this can be your recombobulation area, where you piece things back together when things feel scattered. Instead of putting your shoes back on and fitting everything back into your purse, this is where you put your deeply held values back on. And you fit your priorities and prayers and hopes back into place. Maybe this can be a place where we can face whatever the future holds together. Maybe this can be the place, like that Robert Bly poem says, where we find our souls after forgetting. This beloved community of memory and hope. May we be that place for each other. Amen, and blessed be.